Do you love old cars and trucks? Join us on Bring 'em Back to Life, where we search the salvage yards and backyards of America to find that gold mine of a parts car or that restorable gem in the rough. Come with us down memory lane as we elevate the status of our salvage yards to outdoor museums of automotive history.
Your destination is on the right. That would be Dan Restodan's castle with his classic cars.
Oh, isn't that pretty? I don't know how close I am.
How y'all doing? It's taping.
Okay.
We're on tape, my friend.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. I have you know, a few days ago I tested COVID negative, so you don't have to worry about me. And I don't know if this...
And this is Dan's infamous 57 Chevy convertible that he made out of a four-door sedan. He'll have to show us how he did some of that. So you said this 63 Impala 327 made you famous? How's that?
Well, this is what I started videoing with.
Oh.
I bought this car. Had been sitting in a field since 1977, and I started filming what it takes to get it running and driving. Well, let's see if it'll bust out. I mean, I don't know about my battery.
Yeah, so how is it this made you famous? It was one of the first cars you found in the field and got running.
Yeah, and you know, that's what I like doing, is taking old cars that have been sitting for a long time, make them run and drive, and I kind of have a challenge to make the car run and drive, spending $500 or less.
Oh!
It's sat in the field since 1977, and originally I did get it running and driving by using a $50 motor I bought at the wrecking yard, but later I saved the original motor and rebuilt it.
Okay, so this is the original 327.
Yeah, I found a 305 and threw in it.
Yeah.
I actually did get it running and driving for less than $500 bucks. But
can't beat
I got
that.
more than that in rebuilding that 327.
Right, right.
Well, that's a junk battery for you. It was free. I got it out of a junk car, but anyway.
So I introduced people to your make-believe 57 convertible that you were telling me about.
Yeah, but a lot of people won't believe. I mean, it's a, they just, I don't even bother telling people that. I mean, look at it. Is there anything about it that you can tell that it was pieced together? Nope. I mean, the top and everything works.
Uh-huh.
And, this is what I just now went and got gas in. I put over 250,000 miles on this car myself. And it had 72,000 original miles on it when I bought it. The piece of a car that I started off with.
Yeah, a four-door sedan.
Yeah, it had 72,000 original miles. And now we're at 352,474 miles. You can do the math. But it's all done correctly.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I used to have the original 57 convertibles, and everywhere I went, people said, I bet that's just a hard top with the top chopped out of it. And I tell them, no, this is the original convertible. And they'd be like, no, we'd wind up getting in arguments. So I said, you know what? I sold the original 57 convertible I had for a bunch of money, and I pieced this car together and started driving this car. I thought, well, if somebody tells me it's fake, I'll just say, yep, you're right. Now people come up and say, that used to be a two-door hardtop that you cut the top out of, and I tell them, it was never a two-door hardtop. And then they said, well, it wasn't originally a convertible. Actually, if you want to know the truth, it was a four-door sedan. And they look at me and they say, you smart aleck, it was never a four-door. So either way, I'm a liar.
Well, if you open
I think God knows differently.
If you open the trunk, most of us who know the Tri-Fives well could tell you from the inner trunk panels whether it was a sedan or a hardtop or convertible, because of the way the stripes go. And
That's right.
otherwise, you'd have to look at the frame to see the X or no X.
No, it's all correct. It's all correct. Okay.
So you're a welder.
Okay, Mr. Know-It-All. And you're gonna, I don't even know what's in the trunk. There might even be a dead body in here. I don't know that. It's horrible. This is a driver, okay? So tell me.
Those are hard top inner fender wells.
No, they're not.
Well, the slants all go forward.
Convertible does too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But there's one thing about this that is only a convertible has. And even on the reproduction metal, they don't get it. They don't have it. But there's something that only the original convertibles had, and that is this original square right here. And there's one over there too. Hardtops do not have that.
Oh yeah, that little square. Yeah.
And it's convertible only. And when you buy reproduction metal, it does not have that square. So when you see that, you're allegedly looking at an original 57 Chevy convertible or 55 Chevy convertible.
So
all this is convertible metal.
You got it all out of junk?
Yeah, basically. You know, basically, it's like putting a convertible rear clip on a four-door chassis. It's done correctly. Like I told you, this body to this car would match an original 57 convertible perfectly. And even my doors, even the doors are convertible on me. And you know how to tell that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Where the sun visor goes. Up here, the rain visor.
And there's something else. Vent window lock.
No lock. Yeah.
That's the original Easy Eye glass. Yeah, this is correct.
Done correctly, but it's not original. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Now this 55 hardtop, this has a story that's really unusual.
I first saw that in 1972 at a car wash not too far from here. It was solid turquoise at the time, and it had a 1966 Super Sport interior in it, and it had a big chip of paint about the size of my hand missing from that right rear taillight. But it had Krager mags, it had fender well headers, it had tow bar brackets on it, which it still has, and it sounded real cool. And in 1972, you didn't see very many cars that actually had mag wheels. You saw chrome reversed, or you saw the mag wheel hubcaps, but you did not see actual mags. So this car caught my eye, and through the years, I would see it driving around the neighborhood with that chip of paint missing, and I just knew it, and I kept seeing the car at various different times in my life, and in 1984, I bought the car. Later, I started dating my wife in it, and then later we eloped in it and drove it to California. And then later, I had a bad wreck in it, and I got thrown out of it. I was driving it, and oh man, it's all messy inside. But when I hit on the right front over there, I hit real hard on the right front, and I was trying to turn to keep from hitting, and when I did, I turned the wheel and went and then when it hit, it slung me into this door. I hit the door and I went down in the ground. I went under the car and slid along the freeway. And then eventually I got free of the car, and the car hit a bunch of poles and stuff, and it tore the car all up. And then a bunch of cars were skidding, trying not to run over me, and I laid there in the middle of the freeway, and the first people that looked at me said I was dead. Later I heard a bunch of ambulances, and I thought somebody must have had a real bad wreck. I was laying there in the freeway bleeding to death, kind of praying for somebody else.
Oh, wow.
But it was actually me. I just was in and out of consciousness.
Right.
But, you know, it took me a while to get over the wreck, and everybody told me, just throw it away, Danny. Forget it. It's just a car. But as I started getting my life back together and being able to do more things, I began to put my car back together, and me and my car came back together at the same time.
Nice.
It took me about 1.5 years to get over the car wreck, and it took me about 1.5 years to build this car back. Now, when I first built it, it was beautiful, but it has a guy hit me on the left front fender real hard, and then and I've repainted it and I've done things with it, but it's time to redo it again, and I haven't driven it much. But the car was hit so hard on this side that it was actually crashed all the way back to here. The metal was warped up, and you can still see a little bit of a dent under that.
Yeah.
Only way something like that could get there is from the metal being bent.
Right.
That is actually the original quarter panel. I straightened it out, I had to put another door. The passenger side door was only about this wide.
Oh, wow.
This was all tore back, and I've still got some work I need to do there, but it bent all this back, and I straightened all that, but you know, I had to put a whole new cowl section in it. This is 2 cars welded together to make one. You look underneath it, you can't tell it was ever cut in half. I try to do things where you can't tell. Anyway, I put a 396 in it a long time ago and drove it as a 396 4-speed, but recently I put a 327 in it and pulled the 396 out.
So you've told people in your story that when the EMTs or paramedics were picking you up and they were saying that they didn't think you were going to make it, they kept telling you to hang on, stay awake, hang on, stay
all
awake.
I want to do is go to sleep real bad, but one thing about me, I always wanted to have kids, and I was 30 years old when that happened, and I can remember when they told me, you know, if you fall asleep, you will not wake up. You got to stay with us. Come on, hang in there, stay with us, stay with us. And I remember laying there thinking, God, I haven't had kids yet. I haven't, no, God, no. And I prayed to God, and it, you know, it took me a while, but a few years later, the wife that I was already married to, she and I, we had 2 daughters. We actually carried the daughters home from the hospital in this car.
Oh, wow.
It ain't over until it's over.
I guess. Wow.
So we've told too many people that story though on actual YouTube. People know that I did wreck it real bad, and I got some real horrid pictures of how badly tore up it was. But you know, I mean, I've known that particular car since. Well, I've known the rear half of that car since 1972. Oh, and I have to keep my wife's back locked to it.
I mean, that's pretty dressed up 55 too, with the overriders on the bumpers and the gravel shields and the rocker covers. You know, it's loaded up for.
It's still got the tow bar brackets down underneath it.
Oh,
you remember those from the 60s?
Yeah, they towed it to the drag strips.
That's right, back in the 60s.
Yep.
And whenever I bought it in 1984, it was somebody stripped all the paint off it, and they took the 66 SS interior out of it, and they were going to put some kind of Mopar interior in it. So I bought it, and it was just kind of a gray primered body with no interior. I went to Apache Wrecking Yard, and back in 1984, there were 64 Super Sport Impalas in the wrecking yard. I bought the whole bucket seat interior, console and all, for $75 and put in there back then.
I recognize that interior. I've had a 64 SS, and I've had a 56 Chevy that had that in it.
Well, that right there, that was a reproduction, brand new seat covers. After I bought it, I put those seat covers on, but you know, I've worn them out. I put over 200,000 miles on this car, but I don't drive it much. And I hate to say it, ever since I wrecked it so bad, I haven't really driven it that much, you know. I'm glad I didn't get rid of it or anything like that, but there's something about it, you know. I still have flashbacks of sliding underneath the car. I remember I was right there by the traction bar at one time on the freeway. I was doing about 80 miles an hour when I wrecked it. And,
gee.
And yeah, it's less than 3% of the people who get ejected from a car on the freeway live. And I can't tell you why I live through it, other than the fact that I'm a blabbermouth, and whenever I have good fun in life, I make videos and upload them and try to inspire other people to have a good time. And maybe God just said, can't get rid of him. He does stupid things that people like.
And you do, because that's how I found you. Our mutual friend, Joe Savage Barkley. You know, and I found you on his Facebook page, and sent a friend request to you when I saw this 57 convertible, because my wife and I eloped in a 57 Chevy.
Yeah. Well, we drove that one all the way to California back then. And I remember, we got married in 1990, so we have just celebrated 30 years. But I remember at one point we were out in the middle of the desert, and somebody had an enclosed trailer, and we were eating sandwiches, bologna sandwiches, because that's all we could afford, on the side of the freeway at a rest stop. Last of the big spenders. Anyway, and this guy pulls up with an enclosed trailer, and he has a 55 Chevy two-door hardtop that he was hauling all the way to California. I said, well, we're driving ours. And he showed me what he had, and at that time I had a lot nicer car. Both these cars were really nice, but you know what? When you put over 200,000 miles on them, it shows.
Yeah, it does.
But, you know... Okay,
Dan, I've been watching you on your Facebook page working on this 67 Corvette. Now this is a Stingray, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got the gulls gills on the side. And I remember
67 only.
67 only, and you were telling people how someone taught you how to paint so that it didn't run, and you could actually do it in the right conditions outside, and this looks absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. I'm not done with it. I'll make it look a lot better than that. This right here is just a protective coat of paint on it. You know, I don't like letting a car sit with gray primer, you know, and then when it gets wet or oil gets on it, it still soaks it up. So I'll put a couple of coats of paint on it like I did this car, and that way if I spill oil on it or something like that, I can wipe it off.
Okay.
But once I get the doors lined up right and everything like that on this car, I'm going to go back and scuff it all down and put a really knockout paint job on it.
Now, what engine is in here, and is it an original for the year?
It is a 427, 1967 427 engine. We've done the numbers on it and things like that, but one expert told me that it was a warranty replacement block.
Okay.
So, you know, and I have put on it, it did not have the water pump or the any of the pulleys or anything, and I thought I'm going to see if I can run Chevrolet Suburban style 454 pulleys and alternator. So I ran a long water pump, and that's why if you look at my bracketry and my power steering pump, that's different.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how long I'm going to keep this motor in here. I will keep the motor with the car because it's pretty neat that it is a 67 block and all that stuff. But, you know, I hope to drive this car a whole bunch, and I don't really want to drive around with a 427 all the time. I will save the motor.
Uh-huh.
And so, and the original big block brackets and stuff and pumps for a 67 vet are very expensive. And I don't know, you know, unless I win the lottery, I can't see myself driving this 5 mile to the gallon engine around too much.
And
I will save it.
High performance too, right?
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Now, you told me last night on the phone that you fired it up and you ran it for a little while, but your cam bearings, your cam lobes took a beating. Did you have to change the cam this morning?
No, I put a new cam in it about a week ago.
Oh.
Here, hang on a second. I'll get that other cam and show it to you, Steve.
Put the camera back on now, because you went and got the cam that was in this 427 last week.
Well, I did it a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, that's my fault. See how the cam lobes are flat on it, some of them? And what I did, spookiest thing on this motor sat since 1978. It was rebuilt in 1978, and supposedly the machinist that did it was top notch and all this stuff.
Oh, they all are.
And well, I believe he must have been, but I've never seen this happen before. I put the distributor on it, I put the intake on it, I put the carburetor on it, and I hooked up the starter, and I hooked up the wires. And I threw the timing in, I thought on top dead center, but you know how that is, a lot of time, half the time it's 180 degrees out. You didn't check the valve, I didn't watch the valves. I had spun the motor over several times by hand, but get this, I poured a little bit of gas down the carburetor, and I had some gas in that carburetor, and when I touched the positive wire onto my positive postal battery, the motor immediately started up. I never even heard the starter kicking. I mean, the minute I touched it, it's almost like it fired in the cylinder, and it started up immediately. I mean, it scared the crap out of me. I've never had an engine fire like it. And this motor was built in 1978. And I had that, I mean, it was right on and ready to fire. And I mean, and it ran for a little bit, and I quickly killed it, because I wanted to make sure I didn't have a fan belt wrapped around a pulley or something. I mean, nothing was hooked up. I mean, I was not expecting, I mean, I never had an engine start up like that. But anyway, I checked to make sure nothing was on there. I had no radiator in it or anything. And I fired it up several times like that. You know, just amazed that it ran, and listen to it. This is an L88 grind camshaft. But what you're supposed to do when you first start up a motor, you're supposed to run high zinc oil, and it's supposed to have the correct cam lube on it and all that stuff. And I don't know if it had that or not. I did put high zinc oil in it, but when you fire it up, you're supposed to let this thing run above 1,500 RPMs for about 15 minutes. And I was first of all, I started up and let it die immediately. I mean, I had to pull the wires off to kill it. You know, it's like, golly, that scared me. But then several other times people came over here and I'd fire it up for them. I was proud of it and I let it run a little bit. You know, I remember 30 years ago, I would have a new motor that I put a cam in and it had the correct lube and I had high zinc oil. And I never let it run above 1,500 RPMs for 15 minutes. I would start them a little bit and do some things, and I never had a problem like this, but this sucker, it just started running worse and worse and worse. And whenever I took it out for the first drive video, it was running real crappy, and some people said, man, it really just sounds like garbage. And it did, but it was open exhaust. So I got to, I pulled the valve covers off and checked the adjustment on my rocker arms, and they were way off, and I was like, it's a solid lift cam. There's no reason why that these things that were just last night were about 20 thousandths. Now some of them are about 45 thousandths. And it had worn down that much. But anyway, I put a new cam in it, and it's a lot more mild cam.
Convertible. I like driving around the Baptist Seminary that's not too far away.
We came in by there.
Yeah. And a lot of times on my first drives, I will drive around the Baptist Seminary because there's not much traffic, and I can call my wife and say, yeah, I broke down up here by the seminary and she knows where I'm at. Or somebody can rescue me easier. We probably better get this thing home before it runs out of gas. How do you feel about pushing?
Nice. Not like I haven't done it.
This is my new steering wheel. It just came in the mail today.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. I love it.
Is that the right one for the car?
No.
No? It works.
It's no, it looks all, it's made to fit the car.
Right.
It's got the thicker wheel, but yet it's smaller diameter.
You know, the original was a real big old wheel, and it's really thin.
Right.
So this feels real good. I love it.
I think it's locked.
May have been.
Oh, it's got that GM squeak. Love that door.
And look, I've still got the original dealer tag for it.
Oh yeah.
Corsicana, Texas. Now, if you can film now if you want.
Yeah,
But I
I got
people figuring out where.
I'm focusing on the dash and stuff to know we're in a 57 Chevy.
And see, I got to tighten up my exhaust manifold gaskets right now, but normally I like this car real quiet. And,
Yeah, this is your cruiser, your girl.
yeah, and my wife and I, we take this out late at night. We go cruising in it. We solve all the world's problems.
Now, you told me on the phone, it was a really interesting story about this 57. You came home from somewhere 2 weeks ago and your right front ball joint was folded underneath and you had to go buy new ball joints again. And you told me that there's probably a circle of about 100 miles around here where all the auto parts store have a picture of you in this car and a sign that says, "Do not sell this man any lifetime warranty parts." Is that true?
That would be a good idea because that was probably about the third ball joint I've gotten under the lifetime guarantee. And I'm getting to a point where I'm feeling guilty about picking up all these things. And do you know the movie American Graffiti?
Yeah,
You
right.
know the blonde bombshell that Toad picked up in the movie? Candy Clark.
Yeah.
But her name was Debbie. And Toad, the goofball, you know, he's driving a 58 Chevrolet, and he's cruising and he picks up this blonde bombshell. Well, anyway, she grew up in this house right here.
She did?
That house right there.
Oh yeah.
And funny story, I grew up in this neighborhood too. And my older brother, I don't remember him ever lying about anything, but he, back in '73 when the movie American Graffiti came out, all of us kids went and saw that movie.
Right.
And he said, "Did you know, I heard that blonde bombshell grew up right here off Seminary Drive." And we're all like, "Yeah, okay, Woody, okay." That was back in 1973.
Right.
Fast forward to about 2011, I'm at a car show in Irving, Texas. Candy Clark is there signing autographs. And it was at a slow point in the car show, and I got to talk to her a little bit, and she sounded all folksy like I do. Anyway, and I said, "Where did you grow up at?" And she goes, "Well, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I'd forgotten about that story my brother had told, but I always thought he was full of bull when he told it. And I said, that day it hit me. "Oh yeah, Woody used to always say that you grew up off of the street." And then I asked her, she says, "Oh, over on the south side." And then she told me where she grew up at, and it was right where my brother said. And I'm like, son of a gun. She did grow up off Seminary Drive. Now, my brother was already dead. It was one of those things where I wished I could have called him up and say, "Woody, you were telling the truth. She did grow up off Seminary Drive." Anyway.
Yeah, that was
neighborhood.
That was when Opie was driving that 58 Chevy in the movie, and somebody pulled up next to him and asked him if he wanted to race, and he said no. He said, "What do you got in that thing?" He said, "327, 6 big ones."
Well, and I remember though when Toad was driving it, the goofball, he said, somebody pulled up to him, or no, he pulled up to somebody in a 56 Ford, I think it was. And he goes, "Hey kid, what do you got in that thing?" And that guy looks over and goes, "More than you can handle." And I think that's when he put it in reverse and rear-ended the car behind.
Oh.
That would be my luck if I was trying to be a drag racer.
Trying to be a goof. Yeah, a hot shot.
But this is a nice little test drive area for these old cars. I mean, there's not much traffic. The wife knows where it is, so I can call her up and say, "I'm right by the seminary and I broke down." So she can bring gas or tow chain.
Whatever, huh?
Come help me. I love this drive.
It is pretty in here.
Oh man. Kind of close to TCU also. You go by TCU and there's usually a lot of noise and chaos and oh, it looks like they're having fun if you really want to know the truth. But anyway, this right here is real quiet, peaceful all the time. Big school.
Yeah.
I've driven this car across the Golden Gate Bridge. I've driven it all over Los Angeles. I've driven it, you know, all over the United States. It's been up in the mountains. I've driven it in the ocean. I took it on the beach and a tide came in and anyway, I washed it real good. A lot of people look under the car and they see that there's no rust. And it's all original metal. And like, man, where did you get a 57 convertible that solid? And I was, well, you just gotta build them. Yeah. Because you know the convertibles normally are all rusted out, and I've got soft spots in my floorboards now. But this car's been this way I built it 25 years ago. What a nice piece, though. What do you think of it? It's got power steering, 4-wheel disc brakes. It's time to be redone, but...
Well, I've decided that I'm going to keep my 56 Nomad as stock as I can, but I do want the dual master cylinder with disc brakes on the front. So because it already has power brakes, it's not going to be a hard transfer. Just buy the brand new kit with the dual cylinder and the media the block and leave the drums on the back. And when I put stock wheels and hubcaps on, you'll notice it's got discs on the front anyway.
Well, run disc brake rotors that don't space your wheel out. If you run 72 Monte Carlo style disc brake rotors, it kind of spaces each wheel out nearly an inch. And I don't like that because I've got standard mags that are 6 inches wide, but it's still, if I hit some bumps, it'll rub the outer fender. You know, it's got the wheels out too far, and it just changes a lot of the geometry. So there are kits that they make that it doesn't set the wheel out, and so.
Yeah, I'm going to get the one that just bolts onto the stock spindles. Tri-Five has them available through Dan Chuck.
Oh wow, I need to look into that because this has a 72 Monte Carlo style rotors, and it made the car a lot harder to steer, even too, having that wheel out there like that. So,
but when I'm done with my Nomad, it'll probably be one of the only 1 or 2 left in the world that's original, with a 6-cylinder in it and 3-speed on the column.
Wow.
With power brakes.
What color is your Nomad?
Sierra Gold and Adobe Beige.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.